Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
They were rushing her to the hospital as quickly as they could. My professor was taking his daughter in. Her heart was racing. They were afraid she was going to have a heart attack. And he totally quizzed her. What were you doing? What was happening in the room just a minute ago? And she started stumbling around like, oh, I wasn't doing anything. But he says, tell me the truth. She had been vaping. And he got her to the hospital in time. She almost died. Now, there are vape shops all over the place here, and it looks like it's harmless. I will be driving past people, and I will see them in the car, and they are blowing smoke. They're vaping. They're on their phone, and they're vaping. Now, it's not illegal to be on your phones here in Florida, but it's still just as dangerous. I saw a sign once that said, honk if you love Jesus. Text if you want to meet him. Sisters, there are so many things that are legal that are not safe. It's legal, but they're dangerous and very dangerous for our children and young people. What are your thoughts? What are some of the things that it's okay to do, to use, to eat, to drink, but it's not good and it's not safe?
I can start with this because, vaping has been around for a minute, and it actually had really kind of come from the to the forefront, quite a few years ago, because they were starting to see doctors were starting to see lung damage and pneumonia in young people. And granted, just like cigarettes, it's supposed to be illegal until you are, I believe it's 18, maybe it's 21 in some places. However, because they used to market vape pens and the different flavors to younger people, you would get 14, 15-year-olds who were vaping, and they were starting to see lung damage. And also because it is nicotine, I don't care what you dress it up. It may taste like, I don't know,
Candy.
candy or bubble gum or whatever foolish flavor they give. It's still nicotine. And what I am seeing is that not so much vaping. I haven't seen as much vaping as I had earlier, but you do see more dispensaries that have cannabis gummies
Mhm.
and all kinds of things. Once again, you're supposed to be older when you get these things in, but just like alcohol, when everybody was, getting their first drink way before they turned 21, um, you're seeing more and more people who are exposed to these things. And I think we need to start talking to our kids younger and younger. We don't see as much cigarette smoke with young kids as we used to as when we were growing up, and you have a friend or two who tried it or smoked, and a lot of those people, if they're not dead, they're still smokers. um, but with cannabis it's different because it's been around a lot, but everybody keeps saying, oh well, this is natural, this is from a plant. Well, actually, so's tobacco. And they would put this, and then you have cannabis drinks now, and you don't always have to buy them in the store, which means you can go online and you can order those drinks and you can buy them. So a lot of the things that which are mind altering for whatever reason, and if you want to do that and you're over 21, you go ahead. But a lot of kids are vaping and they're using marijuana, and they're doing these things even as much as they're doing alcohol at younger and younger ages. And it's something that we can't just decide, well, I did it and I was okay, or Yeah, or if you're under 21, you can drink at home, and it's okay because you're learning how to drink responsibly. And I've known parents who do that. They
Mhm.
have their kids drinking at home, but really you're teaching them bad habits. And even if it's your kid and it's your home, you're breaking the law. So we need to start talking to our kids, not just about what's illegal, but also what's just a bad habit. And it probably is just a really bad habit to rely so much on things to relax you, or because everybody's doing it. And that whole thing about, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it? Well, if they had a vape pen, they might. So I think we really need to start talking about what we consider bad habits, but also, parents, practice what you're preaching.
Mhm.
I think it is so important to know that even though a lot of these things are legal at the age of 21, they are targeting younger and younger people. These energy drinks are just as dangerous. Someone posted online just the other day how their child was in the hospital on life support, and all they had done was had a bunch of energy drinks that had a high caffeine content, caused their heart to race way out of control, sent them into a heart attack, and then there was danger. So many of these things, they say, oh yeah, we have to be 21 to do this. These kids aren't waiting until they're 21 to experiment or try out stuff or get with their friends and sneak behind a corner, or a dorm someplace. On the campus where I work, there were all kinds of tables out trying to promote to get marijuana on the ballot. And I says, we already got marijuana on the ballot. We've already got medical marijuana. And they said, well, this is for recreational, but only for people that are 21. And I said, and how many people on this campus that you've run across are 21? These kids are 16, 17, 18, 19. Maybe they're 21 when they graduate if they're going for a master's. But the truth is, they are targeting young people. Young people are responding. I mean, what adults do you know vape bubblegum flavored stuff? Really, that's for children.
The thing about it is, your children are only going to have the values that they see in you. And if you are a parent that, you may have your house parties and you got the liquor. I mean, how many friends do I have that joked about how they raided their parents' liquor cabinet when the parents weren't home and all of that? So it's really hard to have your children listen to you if you have ways that you do of things. And yes, they may be dangerous. No, they shouldn't drink and drive. Yes, vaping is not safe. But if it appears to be the cool thing to do, just like alcohol seemed to be the cool thing to do, just like smoking was the cool thing to do, if your child sees you do things that are physically harmful in the name of recreation, it's not a whole lot you can really say to them they're going to listen to. Because like you just said, you have to practice what you preach, and they will see the hypocrisy if you're telling them one thing and then you're doing something else. And the challenging thing is that we know that our children kind of have to at least look like they're doing what we ask, and they have to follow rules while they're in our home. But once they turn 18, they get to the college campus, or they just get out and get their own apartment, whatever happens when they graduate from high school, that is a sign of their liberation from our authority. They're going to do whatever has already been planted in them. So the best thing I would say parents with sense can do is to teach them enough respect for themselves, their own body, their own safety, their own well-being, so they can make good choices. If you have a child that has a real need to fit in and be part of the crowd and be accepted, they're going to do the things that their friends do because they want to fit in with their friends, even if it's something dangerous, even if it's something that get them killed. I mean, I've had friends that will go out joyriding and, had friends that ended up dead. So you can preach and preach and preach, but it's a matter of them developing a certain quality of
Self-care.
Self-care, self-respect, self-regard. You have to love yourself enough not to put yourself in harm's way, not to do things that would damage your body or cause you to not be in your right state of mind and then get abused somewhere because you're at some party where people are drunk or high. I mean, you know, I got a story to tell you all after the show. I'm not going to tell it on air because I'm not
Well,
talking.
I will say this statistically, your children will do whatever you do in excess of how you do it. Say you smoke a little bit, they will smoke a lot.
Yeah.
Say you drink a little bit, they will drink more than you do. But if you are temperate in some of those vices that, you know, they're not illegal, they're not wrong, but they are harmful. If you don't do them, the likelihood of your kids doing the same thing, following your path, they will follow your path. They
Unless
will follow the habits that you
they
have
will.
established.
And
You're
unless
your own person.
Yes, unless you have done something to such excess where you have been a warning to them not to do. Like if you've been the parent that had been drug addicted or alcohol addicted, and they've seen this horrible Jekyll and Hyde personality where you turn into this monster because you've used a substance that made you other than yourself, then that might be a deterrent for them. Or if you have been the parent that has, you know, engaged in any other kind of unhealthy, unsafe behaviors that are legal, you know, even if it comes down to smoking, and then they see you, you know, later on getting lung disease. Okay, that might be a warning. Well, I don't want to smoke because I see the end result of that. So there are all kinds of ways that our children can learn. We can either be the example of what you should do, or the example of what you shouldn't do. And children go either way in terms of what they learn from us. But the hard thing is like those in between years when they're in college and they're still kind of maybe back and forth at home, and they come home and you might recognize they're doing some different things that you didn't allow. How do you handle that when they're home from, say, spring break or summer break, and they go out to parties or do whatever, and you know that they're doing things that you never would have allowed, but they're now sort of officially grown? How do you handle that? And do you have the authority to say, well, you can't do this while you're in my house. You can't look like you're doing this while you're in my house. How do you handle that?
I think you still need to be the parent. You will approach it in a different way. You're not going to talk down to them like they're two, but you are going to have a conversation with them the way you would talk to a peer that you see is maybe going down a path of destruction. Like if you had a friend who was a mom and you saw that she was neglectful, if you have the kind of relationship where you can speak into your friend's life, you will actually say something to them. You may even give direction on saying maybe you need to see a counselor or get some help or join a 12-step group or something, because look at the harm that you were doing to your family. Now, you can say that to a friend in a way that will maybe help them turn the page and go in a different direction if you have that kind of relationship. And it's all about the kind of relationship that you have with your child. Your child is an adult, they are grown, they are making decisions that's going to affect the direction of their lives. If you want the trajectory to be a safe haven for them, go ahead and have that talk. They may not listen then, but they might listen later, or they might respect you enough to say, let me think about this.
Well, have either of y'all had the experience where either you wish you had said something and didn't, or wish you had said something differently because your child reacted in a way that was opposite of what you wanted? Have either of you had that experience?
Well, Sarah knows I don't drink. Now, her father drinks, and she has wine or whatever, and if she goes out and she knows she's going to have a drink, she will just say, well, I'm going to take an Uber home. If you have one drop of alcohol, you don't get behind the wheel ever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good that's something that I think just from us establishing early before there was drinking, even if there may have been underage drinking, that you are not going to get behind the wheel. I don't, she's a responsible adult and I expect her to be a responsible adult. But I want to touch back on something else that Barbara touched on, and I hadn't thought about it because we're talking about not things that aren't illegal but aren't safe. And Barbara, you touched on those energy drinks. And that's
Mm.
an example of something that there hasn't been enough research done on them. And your story about someone, with the increased heart rate reminded me that Sarah was told by her doctor not to use them because now Sarah dances several times a week for 3 hours at a time. She's driving, an hour away, each way. She's driving there and driving back. It's late at night. She would have caffeine and she was taking these energy drinks. So when she went to her doctor to talk, about, just her regular checkup, the doctor told her stay away from those things because there's more caffeine. So
Yes, straight caffeine.
yeah, because but she felt like she needed the energy to get through not just the dancing part because she had that, but it was the drive home. So now, maybe she'll stop and get a Dunkin' or she'll stop and get a Starbucks and she's not so wired that that she can't sleep, and sometimes she has had something later, but she'll call me and we'll talk all the way home to keep her awake. But this is something that when we see these monster energy drinks and all these other,
Yeah.
Red Bull is another one. A lot of people mix a lot of those things. One, they're nasty, but that's just my perspective. They are nasty. But the other thing is because it's so much more caffeine. Now, I'm not really much for caffeine. My thing is like I'd rather have the Starbucks more for the sugar than the caffeine. Um, but that's the thing is extra caffeine is not illegal, but it still isn't safe. It still can be dangerous. Just like vaping may not be illegal, but there's a lot of things that we need to do. And Barbara, where you were saying you should talk to your child, especially when they're just your offspring because they're fully formed adults now. But you can always tell them, you know, I'm not sure this is really safe or this is a good idea, but do your own research
Yeah.
and have them use Ms. Google and
Ha!
have them do
Chat
their
GPT is even better.
depends, but that's a whole nother conversation. But you have them do their research on the on WebMD or something like that. Have them do a little research so that they're not just hearing, oh, here's mom preaching again. Have them go in and say, okay, is that good? Or encourage them to talk to their doctor because these are fully formed adults. You're not sitting in the room with them anymore, so they can be frank about whatever they're doing with their bodies, with their sexual health, with what substances, and they will ask them. And you know what? It's none of your business at this point anyway. Actually, around the time you're 15, they're 15, the doctor's not going to tell you anything anymore.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's good. I mean, it's frustrating, but it's good because it allows them to be uh,
Autonomous.
no, it allows them to be truthful where
So
Right.
they will not be truthful to you. No, mom, I'm not drinking. No, mom, I'm not having sex. No, mom, I'm not vaping. But the doctor will ask them and the doctor will give them tools to use to get through
Yeah.
this tough time. And so use your primary care or their primary care physician to
And those
help,
things are confidential.
and those things
so
are
now
because even though it may not be legal or it may just be like I say, like the monster drinks or something like that, the doctor will tell them, that's not really safe. And we've seen the research because sometimes they don't want to hear it from you, but they will listen to it from their doctor.
Yeah.
And and these are the things that when we talk about bad habits, use part of that village that we're always talking about. Use that
Hmm.
village of your child's doctor to help them kind of steer them away from bad habits too. Because sometimes they have a little bit more pull even than their peers.
Yeah.
Sometimes, but
And
I
even
think
people
also,
like their coaches, even their coaches, their
Coaches.
teachers, people in their realm of education, their the people that they deal with when they're going to school, they have respect for those people that speak into their lives on these subjects. I have had my kids turn around and listen to someone else who has said the exact same thing that I did, but it's not their parent. They can receive it better.
Yeah.
well, if they're in sports, usually they're going to be more receptive to some kind of advice that helps keep their body in shape, because this is their tool to win. So if
Yeah.
they have a coach or a doctor that's telling them, well, if you do this, you're going to harm yourself. You could have a heart attack if you're drinking these energy drinks excessively and too high on caffeine. But now a question I have, because even though, yes, the doctor is confidential, and yes, they at teenage, they are physically adults and all of that, and what they do really is their own business. But isn't there a way that parents can cultivate a level of trust where if your child is doing something, they can talk to you without feeling like they're going to be condemned or shamed or shunned, so that if they need to talk to you about a mistake they've made or might be getting ready to make, or a decision they're about to make, whether it's sexual intimacy, whether it's a drug they want to try, whatever it is that they may be considering doing that they know you don't approve, but it's a thing that either they did or considering doing, is there a way we can develop an early relationship of trust with them so they know even if they say something that we don't like, we're not going to shame them into silence?
Yes.
And those are your words. The
That's
trust in the beginning.
trust. And when you start when they're young, because you let them know we all make mistakes. We all are learning. And if there's ever a problem, you can always come to me. I remember looking at something on Instagram that says you want to be the parent that doesn't say that said that your child will say, "Oh, we need to, let me we're in trouble, let me call my mom." And not the parent that said that, not the kid who's saying, "Oh, I can't call my mom. My mom is going to kill me." So
Right.
you start early.
Mm.
You start letting them know early. Yes, like I said, if you get stranded or you're doing something you're not supposed to, "Mom, I'm drunk," whatever, yeah, you're going to come mad, but you're still going to come and you'll
Yeah.
deal with it later. But you have to be your child's safe space. And this is what when people talk about gentle parenting, well, I don't know what all that means, but I do know that if you are the person, you are your kids' person that they go to when they are in trouble. They are
Your
not,
kid's advocate.
I'm always saying, "Okay, Sarah, you get in trouble, you're gonna call me for bail money, because I don't care what it was, I'm coming with the checkbook." So
I'll get you out. We'll worry about burying the body later, but
you know, or if you haven't gotten caught, just bring me, just let me know the flashlight, the shovel, the bag, whatever. But you have your child safe space. I might be kidding. You need to be your person's person. These
Mhm.
are the kids. You grew them up, and yes, they are going to make terrible mistakes. They are going to do terrible things. You're going to be really upset. But they need to know, I don't care how upset I am with you. I love you more than anything in this world, and there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to make me say, "Okay, you're on your own."
Yeah, get out.
And if they know that you are not going to be the kind of parent that's "I told you so," they will be more willing to come to you because they know you're not going to throw it back in their face.
Yeah, that's important too.
And that's
And,
really hard to do when you spent all that time lecturing and then they turn around and do it
and do
anyway.
it anyway. But the thing is,
Shut
that
your
kind
mouth.
of trust, but that kind of trust is really built very early when they first start making mistakes at 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. how
Yes.
you respond to them when they do something that you told them not to do. The first time they throw a ball and break the
lamp.
break the lamp, and you told them
Why are
not
they in
to
the
throw a
house?
ball in the
Throwing a
house.
ball.
You know, how did this happen?
Take that
I
outside.
don't know. I mean, so you got to be able to allow them to tell you the truth when they have made a mistake. They have done something that you told them not to do. You warned them why not to do it, and they did it anyway, and you're disappointed. But the way you respond sets the groundwork for how they're going to trust you, or if they're going to trust you ever again when they do something that you've told them that they shouldn't do, and they got in trouble when they did it. So it's hard. It's very hard to not be that punitive parent that wants to scream and holler and call them names and and all that kind of stuff.
That never works.
If you
But
do it, listen.
I know I've tried. No.
Listen, if you do it, once you've calmed down, go back and apologize.
Yeah.
Say, you know what?
That means the world to a child, even
I
a young child, to
I-
apologize for something you did that was wrong.
right,
Yeah.
and showing them how to apologize when you
Yes.
can do it.
So if you can't count to 10 because you're so mad, or you can't count to 20 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever, be willing to say, and that was always Sarah's thing, is that, oh, you never apologize, and it was just because I was never wrong. But But we don't always react at our best selves when something is happening. When you get a call in the middle of the night and your heart is beating so fast because the phone woke you up and you're sure something terrible has happened, so you may not react the best. What do you do?
Plus you're angry. I mean, first you're afraid.
Because you're afraid, and you automatically go to the worst thing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never underestimate the power of prayer. That can get you in a mind of being calm and ready to hear whatever the scary thing is going to be.
And you have to be able to not react when you hear the thing, because it's your reaction that our children fear.
Yes.
The reason why they don't tell us the truth. So being able to listen, and that takes practice. And usually you don't get until you're the grandparent, because grandparents, they have the patience, because we made all the mistakes when we were younger and immature and everything.
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't make any mistakes.
So most of the things that we're saying to do, we didn't do when we were younger because we didn't know any better. But now at the mature age, when you look back and you say, if I had been able to respond with a calmness and not spew out all these awful things that came out of my fear that my child was going to hurt herself or whatever, then I would have responded differently so that they wouldn't fear telling me things. Because, there's a couple of times in Zakia had maybe done something, and I found out later, and she said, well, Mama didn't tell you because I knew you would be upset, and I didn't want you to react and get all upset. So she said it to me enough to know that I have reacted in the past
badly.
So that she knows not to, so she knows not to tell me things that she thinks I'm going to react badly to until after it's over, and then she'll tell me.
Yes.
Well, there's also value in having a good friend that when your child does something and you want to blow up, you bounce off that whole reaction off on your friend who can talk to you and calm you down. I will tell you, there was a time when I was really upset about something that had happened. And I talked to 5 different people before I got my mind back, but I treasured those 5 friends that I could honestly share what was on my heart, say what was wrong. We could all pray together, and then I could deal with this situation with a calmness and not sound like somebody is getting ready to jump off of a cliff.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're out of time. Boy, that went fast. Yes. Well, definitely talk to your children calmly about the things that you think are dangerous, even if they're not illegal. Tell them to do their research, tell them to talk to their doctor, and ultimately be willing to listen if they go ahead and do that dangerous thing anyway, and maybe even get in trouble, just so that they know they can trust you.
Yes.
Well, we've got to go. Make sure you like our Facebook page and Subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3 Black Moms. And until next week, I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are 3 Black moms. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black Moms.